shot blocked by Umberger, who's Paul in front of it. The Blue Jackets get it up to center ice. There's Umberger getting rid of it. Down it goes. The shot. Score! Foligno scores! Columbus sends it back to Pittsburgh. Tied!
And we welcome you, ladies and gentlemen, back to the Hockey Happy Hour. It is a momentous day in Hockey Happy Hour history because we not only have two hosts today, we have our third man in finally.
Oh.
Yeah, obviously, as you can hear, it is, of course, Rob the Povia right in front of me, and I'm Matt Sensudi. And then our third man in, the man of the hour, the man himself, Henry Waholek.
Back. Glad to be back.
Yeah, glad to be back. Henry stepped in when Rob was on a trip out in Massachusetts taking care of some business. And Henry stepped in, and he filled some pretty big shoes, made his own pair. And, of course, Rob's back, and he's got his own, and we're good to go now. We got two great hosts right here.
We're going to need all three of us to cover all this playoff action going on.
Yeah, absolutely. We got a lot to talk about. Lots of stuff happened over the weekend, over the week. Ever since we signed off on getting ready, man, we were just begging for scraps last week. And now this week, holy cow, we got so much to talk about. We're covered in it, man. It is just ridiculous right now.
It's playoff hockey that time of the year.
Yeah, it's the hockey time right now. Everybody's feeling it. It's the big time, you know. It's the big time.
Big time.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, so much is going on, so much unpredictability, but that's what we love about the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yep. And especially that clip we played there with Columbus getting that OT win, their first OT win in franchise history, scored by Nick Foligno, who, of course, as we all know, this Columbus team has been just shocking us this whole season. They've been overperforming and overachieving, getting even to the playoffs. And man, they're just giving Pittsburgh a run for their money big time right now.
They really are. I mean, to see this series tied at 2-2 is a big shock, especially after Pittsburgh just owned Columbus during the regular season to a tune of 5-0-1 record. And they're sort of following the formula that the Flyers have had against Pittsburgh, getting under their skin, especially guys like James Neal, who, as much talent as he has, you get him off his game, he's a scrub.
Absolutely. I mean, it just shows you that, you know, Pittsburgh is a team that just we were talking about this last week on the show. They have that superiority complex going with them because we all know they think they're better than the Flyers. And the Flyers have proven them wrong so many times that the Flyers are better than them. And then Columbus is proving the same thing. Just like Columbus is better than you, maybe not on stats and paper, but playing game-wise, wow. They beat you leaps and bounds because you guys think you're better than them. And they're beating you.
Yeah. So. And if you told me that Pittsburgh and Columbus were going to be tied 2-2 without dominating performances from Sergei Bobrovsky, I'd be like, what are you smoking, man? You got to be all in something, you know?
Especially, I watched the game the other day when they were up 2. They were up 2-0, and then Pittsburgh stormed back and beat them. And that was Bobrovsky had a rough game that game. So it seems like he's playing a lot better as the series goes on and getting a little more confidence underneath him. So,
yeah, it's been so far where we've seen Bobrovsky trying to get himself almost comfortable with the pace. It was strange, though. The last time we really saw him comfortable, he was with Philadelphia. And you're thinking, how can you be comfortable with Philly with a defense like we have? Like, seriously, facing almost 30 shots per night.
Right. I know, it's been bad. I mean, especially the Flyers in this Rangers series. It's just getting It was a rough last game. I had to step away in the third period. I couldn't even bear it there for a little bit, to be honest with you.
I couldn't watch the ending, especially after Carcillo scored. I
literally threw up. Yeah. Once I saw Dan Carcillo actually out there making a play, it was. And the funny thing about it was listening to the pregame on 97.5. I was listening to Jason Martinez, and they have B-Star on there. And B-Star said he actually called him out as one of his stars. He said, and Martinez is like, You are smoking something, Dan Carcillo. Are you being serious?
Car bomb?
And he made a good point. You know, if he can come out there, play a little strong, get underneath someone's skin, make a dirty goal, and he made a play happen. And it was almost shocking to see that actually come true. And that was the nauseating thing about it. Right. After I saw that, I literally went downstairs. I was like, okay, this is a
tough one.
Was it the goal, or was it the celebration after the goal where he just faced the Flyers fans and, for all intents and purposes, gave them double, middle fingers up, pointed, just be like, "What? I scored on you. You're out."
It's just knowing how much of a bum he is. You know what I mean? I mean, even when he was on our team, I mean, I liked his edginess. You know what I mean? But he was stupid. I like Ronaldo's style of play a lot more. I think he's more heady than Carcillo.
Right.
The sick thing about it, I don't even think he was up on the roster the first couple games. They just put him up there for that game, and then boom, he comes in and he plays.
It was kind of the same thing that the Flyers had with him, where they would put him in the roster every once in a while, like in the Blackhawks Flyer series and Stanley Cup Finals. He didn't show up till Game 3.
Right.
They didn't even have Carcillo dressed for the longest
Right.
time because they ran the risk of taking bad penalties against Chicago. And going into that series, you knew anything but penalties, and you'll be okay. You know.
Well, it's, bringing the closer, bringing the tough guy, bringing the goon to defend your big-time players. I could talk all the crap I want about Dan Carcillo, but now this is 2 goals against the Flyers, one in the regular season, one in the playoffs. He just loves getting back at the Flyers. And
loves scoring on Ray Emery.
Yeah.
Because that was also on Ray Emery who scored that goal.
Yeah, I mean, a game you really needed Ray to play, step up and play well, and just wasn't. I don't think the game was. I don't think really any of them being down in this series has much to do with Emery. I think. A little bit to a point, but I still think they'd be behind because the team play has just been terrible. I mean, offensively, defensively, power play. I mean, it's just it's been pretty ugly. Now they're talking about switching, the power play up, having Voracek bring it in to kind of take. I just can't remember when Claude Giroux's been this absent in a series. I think the guy's hurt or something. I don't know what's going on, but it's kind of scary.
It is, because he hasn't had a goal. He's had very few shots on net. I think he only has 1 assist in the entire series. And then to add to it, Voracek's been the guy who's been stepping up to be the leader. And you're thinking, right. Voracek's not even an A. Mm-hmm. And yet he's stepping up to the plate. This is weird, because if anybody should be stepping up, it is Claude Giroux.
Yeah, and that's what I was watching last night. They were doing a little Tim Panaccio over there at the rink. And, now they're talking about running the power play through Voracek. And I'm like, well, who's your star player here? I mean, what the hell's going on with Claude Giroux? I mean, he's obviously getting binged up. I mean, they've been hitting him. They've been physical with him. But I don't remember a playoff series I've ever seen him be this absent.
You hit the nail right on the head there. The Rangers all regular season kept Claude Giroux absent, and we're seeing it in the playoffs too. Their strategy is take him out. Do not let Giroux beat you. So they might be playing extra defense on him, which would allow Voracek to step up as a fellow line mate. But you might be on to something, because I believe it was either Game 1 or Game 2, Giroux blocked a shot and was very limpy for the rest of the game afterwards. So, it comes playoff time where it's cloak and daggers, who's injured, who's not injured. Right. Could be a possibility.
Yeah, and at this time of year, everybody's nicked up and bruised up. But the last thing you're going to ever hear from the captain is coming up and admitting, hey, I'm hurting right now. But it just doesn't, that quickness, that agility that he usually has, especially in the offensive zone, it just doesn't seem like, he's usually zipping around. I mean, he gets the puck now, especially in the last game, and he's sitting there, he's dancing with it, he's hesitant. I don't know what's going on with him right now.
The perfect example is the power play, man. The power play has been bad, and you'd think that if anything was going to get the Flyers back into the series, it was going to be their power play.
That's their strong suit.
And the sad part is that Giroux's sitting there making more passes, and he's passing it to Voracek. He's passing it to Hartnell, I think, who was up on the line. They're passing it back and forth. He would send it back to Timonen and Strite. Be like, When are you going to take the shot?
And that's the thing. When they do shoot it then, and it gets blocked.
It gets blocked.
I mean, you look, 28 blocks. 20 misses on the net last game. 48 shots didn't even attempt, make Lundqvist work at all. I mean, 50, that's I don't even know how you expect to win a playoff game like that.
It's one of those things where you look at it and you say to yourself, okay, you've got to put this into definition. Obviously, whatever you were trying to do in Game 3 wasn't working because they're going to block every shot come down the pike.
Yeah.
This is what you do then. You do what you did with that one goal you scored. You work a transition play. Now, I know the Flyers don't have a whole hell of a lot of players that can do that right because when you look at Wayne Simmons and Scott Hartnell, you don't think passing players. You don't think that any day of the week. But you got Voracek, you got Giroux. Obviously, Streit's got a bit of that offensive niche. He's the one who scored the goal. Right. And all of the goals that the Flyers have scored have come from defensive men with the exception of Jake Voracek's goal.
And that just tells you something. I mean, you look at it on the power play especially. They're shooting out by the blue line too much.
Yeah.
Get it down behind the damn net.
Yeah.
Get Simmons and Hartnell in front of the goal. Get them to mix it up a little bit. Get a dirty goal. I don't even know. I couldn't even tell you the last one they had in the series. I mean, that's a strength of theirs.
Yeah, and the sad part is that everybody who's got a goal, you wouldn't think would have a goal. Like Streit's got one, McDonald's got one. And then Voracek's the only one who you would expect to have a goal at this point, And then at the same time, even Atkinson has a goal.
Right.
Like, I mean, he made up for what happened in Game 1.
Right.
But it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, though, man. And that was the ugly goals that we're talking about, getting those rebounds, because you're going to need those on Lundqvist. Lundqvist is not the goalie to give up a soft goal. If you want a soft goal, don't turn to Lundqvist.
It's too many just too many one shots blocked. They pick up the puck and they're out of the zone. It's like
well, it's to credit the Rangers. That's what they do. They defend. Yeah. They're just great block shot, and they just really own the Flyers. So kudos to them. They carried out their game plan. But what I like to see is that tenacity that we saw all last game. It didn't result well, but if the Flyers come out and play like they did in Game 3 with Mason back in net, I see no reason why they can't be victorious tonight.
Right. I mean, Mason has. I mean, this is. I mean, he's 0-4 in the playoffs. I mean, I was got a playoff win with us, but this is the time for him to come up. I mean, the series is far from over. I mean, they're down 2-1 here. I mean, they come and take this game. It's a whole other series. So, I mean, I think. We'll see what Mason's is made of the rest of this playoff series, obviously.
We'll see if he could step up. So we've turned from one end. We did a bit of analyzation of the Flyers and Rangers. Of course, we were going to get to that. We're all Flyers fans here. And now we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in the NHL in general here at the Hockey Happy Hour, because it's everything and anything hockey. So obviously we're down one team already in the playoffs. Now, we did not think we were going to we did not think we were going to be down one team already, but we are.
It's been wasted no time giving us a shocker.
Yeah. And then the point part is, it is a shocker because we thought this team should not be out this early. They're better than that, but they are. And if anybody isn't catching up with it already, the Montreal Canadiens swept the Tampa Bay Lightning straight out of the postseason. Steven Stamkos and his Lightning are gone. Wow. I did not see that coming. I thought that this was going to still be on right now. I thought this series would still be having games and just back in Tampa. I did not see this happening. Did anyone of you see that happening?
Pretty shocking.
The series going 7, and it's just indicative of the regular season, how it went back and forth, all one-goal games. I thought the series would continue like that, but much credit to Carey Price and all those goal scorers on Montreal, specifically an old friend, Danny B.
Yeah, Danny B contributed on that offense, especially in Game 1 when they got that OT winner.
Yeah, I mean, this time of the year for Danny Briere. I mean, he did it with us for years. This is the time when he shines. I mean, that's one thing I remember we were talking a couple weeks ago about. I always loved about that guy. When this time, I mean, no matter, bing, bam, hit, smack to the ice, this time of year, that guy always came to play during the playoffs.
And now Montreal's moving on to the semifinals. They will face the winner of the Boston-Detroit, and since we brought that one up, or at least I did, we'll get into that now. Boston took a 3-1 lead against Detroit yesterday in an OT thriller in Detroit, and I said right there in my living room, I said that should just be enough for Boston to get this series win. You guys think the same thing?
I think so.
It was kind of a dagger, especially in OT. It was a good goal. You know what I mean? It was a really nice goal there that kind of ended pretty quickly in OT. It didn't get too deep in OT either. So, pretty solid game, and definitely caught a little bit of it last night.
Yeah, I was rooting for 4 OTs. Wear down that Boston Bruins team, you know what I mean?
I don't know if that's possible.
Well, that only happens every once in a while. We can't all be the Flyers and Penguins of 2000. We can't always be that team.
But, yeah, Hamilton there just, skate kind of what you were talking about what the Flyers should do. When the lane's blocked, bump it out, transition out, find that lane, shoot it on goal. You got a deflection off of Gilna, off their defenseman, in, game over.
I mean, I got to give props to him, too. Gilna, he's a solid player. I mean, the guy just doesn't seem like he's ever going to slow down. He's got to be in his mid-30s now, getting in his late 30s. Seems like he's been around for...
He's just getting better with age. He's like Yager.
That's what I was just going to say. The guy seemed like he's been around for ages.
He has been, man. He played on Calgary for... God knows how long. I mean, they were still wearing those temperature meter jerseys back when he started with them. And then now he's with the Boston Bruins. He spent that year with Pittsburgh, that year where he was in paganism and everything like that over in Pittsburgh. But nonetheless, he hasn't lost his touch. He hasn't lost his offensive niche. And, man, does that make Boston 10 times even more dangerous than they already were.
Right.
I mean, they won a cup without him. Now they got him. So it's just like, whoa, man.
Yeah, 36. That's it just seems like he's been floating around forever. But it's just crazy, a guy in his late 30s that can really, still be that impactful of a player for them.
Well, he was drafted nice and young in '95, ironically, by the Dallas Stars. Did not know that. He was drafted by the Dallas Stars, yeah.
That's news to me,
too. Here's us thinking that he started with Calgary.
Right.
I remember the years. I mean, that's when he was obviously, one of the top 5 players in the game there for a while.
He was winning the Art Ross Trophy like every year that time period, man.
But kind of along the same lines as Couturier being drafted nice and young, that's why he feels like he's been around since the Stone Age.
Yeah. It's crazy. I didn't know he was that big. He's actually a pretty big guy, too. 6'2", 215. So, that's why he throws that weight around a little bit.
Yeah, they loved him in Calgary. It's a shame he couldn't win a cup with them. He ran into a brick wall known the Tampa Bay Lightning. But, yeah, and the Flyers unfortunately knew that, too. But we move on. But we leap from one sore subject onto this one. Let's talk quick about the Red Wings, though. The mighty have fallen in the Red Wings. And I know that they've been banged up this year, but do you see the Red Wings starting to really start to go down in a period where they would suffer for quite some time? Because what has it been, 23 straight playoff berths, or 22 it is, and they're now finding themselves really struggling to get into the playoffs. Even in a weak Eastern Conference, you would think Detroit would be just running rickshaw all over the place, but no, they really struggled all year long to find their niche. And again, the injuries plagued them. But I still have to say, you think this team is finally down on the downtrodden after all these years?
No, I think this year was a bit of an aberration. Just lots of injuries. You saw how they could play. They played in this game very well. You have Zetterberg back. He's not fully 100%, but still was playing well. Captain's back on the ice. And really, I was expecting them to take this game. The way that they were playing didn't work out that way. Boston got the goal in OT. But in terms of successive years, I feel like they'll be back on the mountaintop next year. But after that, that's when you start getting into the depth of the youth of this team, and I don't see it. So long term, I do see that unless they start, rebuilding that interior youth, they could be on a downswing. But I think for this year, this was an aberration. What do you think, Henry?
Yeah, I mean, the team's just been a perennial playoff team for who knows how long. So, I mean, eventually they're going to have their peaks and valleys, but ultimately, I think that franchise just always seems to produce, and especially getting into the playoffs, getting wins. I think eventually they'll find a way to make it happen there one way or another. It's too much of an established franchise for them to fall off for too long. Maybe a year or two. You know what I mean? You're always going to take a dip back in rebuilding youth, going through the draft, getting some younger talent into there. But ultimately, they'll reign supreme again. I would say at least in the next couple of years. I mean, they do have an older roster. But over time, I think definitely they could get back to the top. There's no ifs, ands. I mean, besides, Boston, the Bruins, I would say go right along with the Red Wings, Blackhawks. One of those teams the last 10 years that's really just always been floating to the top. So I don't think it'll be out of the top for too long.
Okay, well, I mean, it's funny because you think about Detroit, and that was a bad first-round draw for them in the worst way possible, winding up having to face Boston. They would definitely have welcomed Pittsburgh with open arms because, no doubt about it, with the way Columbus is getting Pittsburgh, there's no doubt in my mind Detroit would probably be owning the Penguins by now, again, in that series. But them facing Boston pretty much put them in a really bad position because you're looking at a team that has faced Boston at least, I think it was 6 times a year now, and in an Eastern Conference that's very weak, but a very tough division out of the two. Detroit really just, and those injuries, again, they really plagued them all year long, and it really contributed to their team struggling. And again, you think that between the first-round draw and the injuries, it's very hard for Detroit to get out of this series. And I think Boston did get that devastating win that you need to pretty much send a team up the river and say goodbye to them permanently for at least a year.
It's looking like that when you lose, Game 4 on home ice, and you could have tied up the series going back to Boston. Now you're going back to Boston down 3-1. That's tough. That's a tough mountain to climb,
especially versus Boston. I mean, you couldn't really said it better. It's a bad draw in just general for them, yet alone going against probably, if not the best team in the league. So I mean, for them, it's going to be hard for them now to kind of. I mean, it would be miraculous. I mean, if they can come back in this versus them, but it would be hard to see something like that versus especially Boston at this point in time. They're really playing well.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got Boston and Detroit, and whoever wins this series is facing Montreal. If Boston wins, we got ourselves a Montreal-Boston series.
Wow.
I've already got goosebumps thinking about that again. Those are always fun to watch.
From original 6 to original 6, keeping true with that.
Yeah. Our friend Darren will just be like, he'll be like, eyes glued to the television every night because he'll be so like, Montreal's got to beat Boston. They got to beat Boston, And then was it another Boston grad? I think his name's Matt too, and he'll be just sitting out there, just like, got to beat Montreal, got to beat Montreal. It's going to be great just to see that.
It's a real shame. I really felt that Detroit could have took it to 7. You got a great performance from Jimmy Howard, which I called out for and asked for, and he pitched a 1-0 shutout, and then he gets the flu bug.
Yeah.
Great. Now, their backup didn't play a bad game. Obviously, Gustafsson had great years with Toronto, so he's been there before. It was just, Bruins outlasted him. It's a shame. Maybe with Jimmy Howard, hopefully he's well and better playing back in Boston. Maybe they can creep back in the series, but it's going to be an uphill climb.
It will be. Okay, so we've gone from one uphill climb to another. The Los Angeles Kings, or as we like to call them, the Philadelphia Flyers of the West, basically are down 3-0 in the series last night, facing elimination. They somehow, some way, pull a win out of the ass and pull within 2 of tying the series. Now, only 3 teams in hockey history have ever come back down 4-0, and that was the 42 Toronto Maple Leafs, the 75 New York Islanders, and the 2010 Philadelphia Flyers. And then, of course, in baseball, the 2004 ALCS champions, the eventual World Series champions, the Boston Red Sox, beating the Yankees. So we've got all of that history thrown into one. I want to know, gentlemen, do you think that these Los Angeles Kings are capable of doing such a thing to the San Jose Sharks?
I don't think so.
Tell us how you really
yeah, I was going to say to put that pretty bluntly. No, I mean that's pretty impressive with that little recap, Mr. Sensuti. By the way,
thank you. I did my research.
I was just going to say you were doing your homework last night. That was pretty.
Did my homework on it, and I even watched that.
That was a beautiful little segue you just put through to me right there.
I even watched that ESPN film on the Red Sox when they beat the Yankees, just because I wanted to do all the research that was necessary to get this one ready to go.
No, that's great. And, I don't think so. That's a really. I mean, what'd you just say? 4 was it 4 teams? I think you just rattled off right there that have done
4
it.
4 teams.
It's. I mean, it's going to take. It's going to take some kind of epic turnaround to make something like that happen. And at this time of the year, I don't foresee it happening personally.
It's tough against a Sharks team that just has like 3 solid lines that can score on you. Antti Niemi playing like he did back in the Chicago days.
Oh gosh,
it's tough. But just to analyze what you said there, 3 out of the 4 teams that have done it have come from the NHL.
Yeah.
So it's something suits the NHL for comebacks. Now with this Kings team, you have two players, one of which you played, one was injured. Two former Flyers. Do I really need to name their names? We know who they are.
We already know who they are. They're the Saturday Night Fever crew, basically.
the South Philly party crew.
Yeah.
Rocking out with John Travolta. You know it. But they were both on that 2010 team that did come back against the Bruins, and Mike Richards being the captain of that team. So he has the experience. I kind of think that works against them. How much good luck could one player have? Come back 3-0. But you saw him take charge in a non-captain sense in last night's game. Scored a goal, really was playing fierce, bringing up the energy, which is his role on the Kings team.
It kind of harks back to when he was a captain of the Flyers, and the Flyers desperately needed a win. He was kind of the go-to guy where he would get that big check or get into that fight or get that goal that was necessary. In the playoffs, though, it was more like that was Danny Briere's thing. But during the season, man, when we needed something, Richards was usually the go-to guy for it. He always led by example. And he's doing that in Los Angeles. Even though he's not the captain, he was doing it without being the captain, which is always the right thing to do for any team that you're on.
I mean, that's definitely his strength. I mean, he was always a solid overall player. You know what I mean? So defensively, offensively, getting the guys up and moving. You shouldn't really need one guy really at this time of the year. If you got someone really charging it to get up for these games, I mean that says something in itself, to be honest with you. Which kind of goes back to my point where I think it's pretty much over for them. But we'll see how it turns out, though. It could turn out. It could be epic.
But also, we got to point out Jonathan Quick, though, man, he has done absolutely horrible in this playoff. I mean, he's had almost double digits scored on him, and you're thinking this is a Vezina Trophy Conn Smythe winning Jonathan Quick goaltender of the Los Angeles Kings, and he is doing this bad.
Yeah, you've seen some really inconsistent play here by some big names here in the playoffs. And that's one position especially in the NHL, the Marty Brodeurs of the world, the Patrick Roys, these guys that stay around at 10 years that are playing at peak, it's one of those positions, you can be really good for a couple years, and then, you can be benched for the backup 2 years later. We've seen it, with Tim Thomas, back with the, multiple situations where that's kind of come out in the past. But you have seen some really inconsistent play by some big names, Miller, Quick, just to throw a couple names out there this year.
Crawford's been a little inconsistent himself for Chicago.
You've definitely seen a little bit of that, which has been surprising.
Yeah.
Which has been surprising. Even Bobrovsky, the first couple of games, didn't play that great, in my opinion. He let a couple soft goals in there, especially that fourth goal up underneath his arm.
Now with Fleury, that's a given, but with Bobrovsky, though, that's strange. Man, you know?
I was telling Matt when we were riding in that if you told me that Columbus was going to be tied 2-2 with Pittsburgh and Bobrovsky was not going to be stealing those two games, would have no idea how that would happen. But in regards to the subject at hand with Quick, that's why I thought this was also going to be a 7-game series. That, okay, you got the high-powered offense of the Sharks meeting the stonewall of Quick, and so far it's been advantage Sharks. And just I tried to be a little hopeful for the Kings that maybe they could creep back in the series. They do have the experience with Richards and Carter to
do this.
But Sharks are going to win next game. It's over.
Yeah.
That was a really nice way of saying that, Rob. I like it.
See, the funny thing is that I like the Sharks the most probably out of everybody here. But the funny part is, though, is that you guys are right, know, and I was giving the Kings the most hope, strangely enough. But you know what? I'm going to say, it's got to be over. Only because the Kings' offense has been gone, and it's been weird. They've had the oddest people scoring goals for them. Hasn't been Jeff Carter all that much. Hasn't been Mike Richards. Hasn't been Dustin Brown.
Similar, just like you were saying kind of about the Flyers.
Yeah.
I mean, the big goal scorers are just...
from your star players. You need them to step up and start scoring like hat tricks per night.
And they got offense, too. I mean, it's not like the Kings don't have offense, and it's never really been an awful... I mean, they're definitely got a lot of goal scorers on that team, so it is a little surprising. But, that's why teams win and lose. It's obviously San Jose's outplaying them. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And now we've come to the point where here we are And the Kings, they got to pay the price. You know, they allowed this to happen to themselves, really, at the end of the day. They could have come into this series and played better. They played like crap. Now they're going to get dished out like it by San Jose. Who better to do it than a hated rival in the San Jose Sharks? Mm-hmm. And so we talk about that series. They would face off with the winners of Anaheim versus Dallas. This is a series that has been pretty darn competitive. It's been deadlocked at 2 now. Dallas is one hell of a home team. Anaheim's a great home team. We're starting to see that kind of play off a little bit. They've both split the series, but they've won both games at home. What is the fate of these two teams? What do you think we're going to see rolling into Game 5 back in Honda Center? Do you think the Dallas Stars might have an upset in them to kind of take the series back to home, possibly? Or do you see Anaheim keeping it all locked up in Anaheim?
I mean, it's a good question. I mean, you're right. I mean, it's 2-2. It's been a tough series. It's been good hockey. I mean, Dallas took the last one 4-2, so it was a pretty impressive game. What's this reading? I didn't really see Getzlaf's out with an upper body injury. Is he not playing? I'm just reading.
Yeah,
this
we were
here.
talking about that too. He caught a puck to the face. I believe that was in Game 1. But then he played in the next game. You know, he got stitched up, no problem. Over the course of Games 2 and 3, he got banged up again. They're being very discreet about it, as all coaches are coming to playoffs.
Upper body injuries. I mean, that's one thing about the NHL and their injury stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, one person says one thing, one other person says another thing. They especially doing the same thing with Mason, upper body injury. It's like, just come out and say the guy's got a concussion. He's got a damn concussion. I mean, I don't know what the hell.
Speaking of injuries, Steve Downey is now out indefinitely for the Flyers, so he probably won't be back till next season. But yeah, it's the injury bug has been there, and people are being very discreet. And you were saying earlier about Cloak and Dagger. It's been exactly that way with that because the coaches don't want anybody being targeted. They don't want any particular body part being targeted. They are just really hindsight on making sure that, oh, yeah, he just has an injury. Yeah. I'm not going to tell you what injury, but he has an injury.
When it comes to the NHL, human anatomy is nice and simple. It's either upper body or lower body.
There is no gray area here, ladies and gentlemen.
Makes sense. 2 categories.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, if it's an upper body injury, it is a concussion. So hopefully that's not Getzlaf's fate here. You know, being a potential MVP for this league, for this playoffs.
Our MVP of the season.
Yeah. And I honestly, in terms of my outlook for Game 5, Dallas came home down 0-2 and really owned Anaheim down in Dallas. No big surprise. They're a great home team. Going back on the road to Anaheim, where Anaheim also, too, has been a great home team, I don't really see Dallas playing well. They're a worse road team than Anaheim is, and here's where Anaheim gets the advantage here in the series and wins this next game.
That's a good point that he does make, that both teams are really crappy on the road, and it's come back to haunt both Anaheim and Dallas on at least 2 occasions now. So, I mean, Henry, do you see the same thing happening with Dallas? Do you see their road woes still bothering them come Game 5?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about that a couple weeks ago. I mean, that's one place where they really struggled was on the road. I think they had one of the worst road records out there. And at this time of the year, I mean, in hockey, sometimes I think, you know, home ice is a little overrated. But in a tied series like this, I think, you know, it definitely has a little more to do with it, especially when you get down. I think it has more of an advantage. But you know, we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. I mean, it's playoff hockey. I mean, either or. You know, it's been a tough series. I'm just looking at Game 1, Game 2. I haven't really locked it on this series, to be 100% honest with you, as much as I have on a couple of these other ones. But you know, first couple games were really tight. You know, and then Stars blew them out in Game 3. Another tight game yesterday. So you know, we'll see how it turns out. But it's been a good series so far.
It has been. It's been very competitive, and both goaltenders have been phenomenal. Lettonin's been great, and surprised by his absence, Jonas Hiller hasn't been here.
Yeah.
You know, and it's been, I don't remember his name.
Freddie Anderson.
Freddie Anderson.
Yep.
Thank you.
I think that's a first for you, Matt.
Yeah, saving my ass, Rob the Pope, man. Thank you so much.
Can't remember it all, brother. Can't remember it all.
And,
That was great.
It was definitely a shocker when I saw, like, man, Hiller's not here, and you would think that. But, again, Hiller didn't play all that well against Dallas during the season, so that was the main concern I think that the Ducks had going into that series was, Hiller hasn't played well against them. Maybe if we go with Anderson, we might be on the safe side. So far, he's stepped up to the plate, and he's been pretty good for them so far. So, it's been pretty competitive goaltending-wise between the two goalies.
Yeah, you made that point on the last show that Boudreau could just be playing purely matchup. This may not be the goaltender for the whole Stanley Cup run, but at least for this first-round matchup. But then you saw in Game 4 where, Anderson gave up 3 goals in Game 3 to a shutout. Okay, well, it's an aberration. It's one game. And then in this game, Dallas scored on him again, and you saw old friend Hiller come in the third period there. Does Hiller start Game 5? Do they go back to Anderson? I think that's the key question.
Got a caller on the line. Hey, what's up? You're on the Hockey Happy Hour, bud.
Good afternoon. My name is Tom. I'm calling because I was referenced in your last week's episode, and I thought I would call to defend my name as I was accused of being a fraud and also possibly getting my ass kicked for supporting the New Jersey, the Rangers over the Flyers.
What's going on, Thomas? How you doing, man?
Obviously, the backstory. Now, in case you didn't listen to the show last week, I ripped Tom basically for cheering for the New York Rangers against the Flyers as a New Jersey Devils fan, which I thought was a clear violation of being a Devils fan, considering the fact that the Rangers are the arch rivals of the New Jersey Devils. Not that the Flyers are any good friends of the Devils at all, but what's going on, Tom?
Well, I have a couple of supporting factors. First of all, I'm a converted fan. I'm a Devils fan. I was formerly a Rangers fan. My dad used to work in the city, growing up as a kid. So, every once in a while we go to a Rangers game. And I was somewhat dormant I'm not paying attention to hockey from somewhere in the mid-'90s up until actually a couple years ago when I got tickets to the Stanley Cup Finals between the Devils and the LA Kings. At that point, I really enjoyed the Prudential Center. I enjoyed they had a nice outdoor setting going on. There was like a celebration. So I decided to become a season ticket holder for the 2012 season, and really impressed with the Prudential Center. That's kind of how I converted over to the Devils.
Did you get shot on your way into the Rock there? No, but
I see the Prudential Center as somewhat of a green zone. If you can make it to the Prudential Center, you're safe. Anything outside the Prudential Center, you're on your own.
Well, good thing they have good amenities in there. You can stay within the stadium. But no, I hear your point, Tom. So you started off as a Ranger fan. You converted over to a Devils fan. And so thus you see Flyers versus the Rangers. You're gonna side with the Rangers over the Flyers. It's understandable, but when you're in the home of a Flyers fan and you're just shouting at me at every goal, whoa! I got a little angry. I got a little upset.
Well, let me get to my point, because that's just the pre-story. Now, my primary sport, as Mr. Dr. Pova will tell you, is the football. So the Dallas Cowboys being America's team, of course, I'm going to do it with the Dallas Cowboys. So, of course, or depending on your region, but specifically in this region, the most hated rival is going to be your Philadelphia Eagles. And the classless of all classless fans are going to be your Philadelphia Eagles fans. And the only fans I see even worse than the Philadelphia Eagles fans are going to be your Philadelphia Flyer fans.
This guy's throwing out fighting words over here.
All right, so he's trying to spark something around up in here. He's got that wood and he's got that lighter, man. I need some lighting fuel. We can provide that.
Well, I'm just going to reference a certain YouTube video. Just put in Geno's, as in Geno's Steaks and Flyers, and you'll see what goes up. But also, Philadelphia in general. You also have the Philadelphia at the Phillies game, where the one fan threw up on a police officer's daughter. The Philadelphia fans are just disgusting barbarians.
I might agree with you on some points, but when it comes to hockey is a totally different breed, and thus its fan base is totally different than what you'll see with Eagles fans, Phillies fans, maybe even Sixers fans as well. It's because hockey is much more of a modest sport, and you see that within the within the fan base. Where you don't see that is in the upper New Jersey, New York region where people go out of their way to shout at you and just change up teams on the standpoint. Oh, I'm a Rangers fan. No, I'm a Devils fan this week. No, I'm a Rangers fan this week. No, I'm a Devils fan.
Is,
it's even worse that
Islanders
he
fans would switch from the Islanders jerseys to the Devils, strangely enough, because it used to be where it's just like, oh, yeah, I used to be an Islanders fan, but then when they stopped winning the Stanley Cup, I decided to become a New Jersey Devils fan because the Devils had a shot. So it'd be like, oh, okay, so you really don't care. Got it.
And he must love mediocrity because, I mean, the Cowboys have been 8-8 for, I think, 15 years now. So I couldn't even tell you the last time they won a playoff game. So.
Well, I will sympathize with the comments as far as people switching teams, with the exception of my potential switch over in hockey, and I've been a Dallas Cowboys fan since, as far as I can remember, early 90s. That's the only other time, other than the hockey, it's the only really time I've really switched over, so I can sympathize in that regard. Another factor I would say for potentially supporting the Rangers over the Devils was, I mean, if you're going to someone else's home and you're not, necessarily a fan of that team, I mean, I think there's some level of interest of rooting for the other team to kind of make it interesting.
It does. But in all honesty, if I was, say I was over at your house and you were watching the Devils face off with the Rangers, I really wouldn't cheer for the Rangers to beat you. I would just kind of point and laugh if you lost. That would kind of be my way of just being a friend, but being a friend of another team that just happens to be your rival. But it would have been one of those things. I really wouldn't care if the Rangers lost. I'd just be like, okay, Rangers lost, no surprise. Rangers shoot themselves in the foot all the time. So do the Flyers. But the point is that I really wouldn't have cheered necessarily. But I mean, everybody to each their own. Everybody has their own way of jabbing at their friends. For liking their hated team.
And I hear what Tom's saying. That is our relationship. We love, grinding each other's gears, you know what I mean? And definitely there's been times where we've come close to fisticuffs. As a matter of fact, that night I got a little hot under the collar. Tom's like, whoa, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? So I hear what you're saying, Tom. You know what I mean? It's boring if you're just sitting back watching the game. You want a little, friendly rivalry between friends watching a hockey game. But it broke the line a little bit, and my partner here on the Hockey Happy Hour got my back last week, called you out, brought up some fighting words. You brought some fighting words back. There's only one way to settle this: Fight Club.
Well, going back to my previous point, the football, the hatred I have for the Eagles, it really transpires just in Philadelphia in general, and that's where really I can never root for Philadelphia. The only exception of any time I could ever see myself rooting for a Philadelphia team would be if there was some sort of playoff implication. But even like Giants versus, I know this is a hockey show, I'm trying to keep it closer to hockey, but
That's
Giants
okay.
versus Eagles, I'll even go for the Giants in that scenario. So that's the only really scenario I'll ever vote for a Philly fan is there's some sort of playoff implication.
Where's the hatred for the Eagles stem from?
I think it's stemming from the fact that he just doesn't really like the fan base of the Eagles, which is understandable. I mean, Philadelphia fans, we can all own up to it. There's a lot of times where you'll get your occasional beatdowns and your car vandalisms and stuff like that. I mean, we all remember the news story when Green Bay eliminated the Eagles. Every Green Bay fan's car had at least one less rear view mirror, at least 5 windshields broken. It was a nasty,
it's Philly.
teardown out there in the parking lot.
Fans get passionate.
Yeah,
man. They get into it. They get
man.
tuned up at the games. You know what I mean? And
and then of course we all know the famous Geno Steakdown beating when the 2 Rangers fans decided to go get. Get steaks. That was a big mistake. After the Winter Classic game, that was a huge
I still remember
mistake
seeing that clip. That guy got
I kind of
knocked
fault
out.
the Flyers fans there in that standpoint too. I mean, they did go
did.
way overboard.
Yeah, he almost did sucker punch him. I do agree.
I mean, all fairness, I do say that there's no need to beat them down after the game is over. It's the game. It's over. There's nothing you could do about it. Just relax.
Right.
But again, when you mix alcohol and passion.
Let's just make a point, though. I mean, not to hunker it down on just Philly, though. It happens. I mean, let's go out to San Francisco when the guy got his face stomped in a couple years ago. It happens otherwhere. We're more in tune to it because we're from here. But any, passionate sports base has their loonies that get drunk, that throw, that do the stupid things. It's just not as as prevalent to us, because we're from Philly and this is what we see. So.
There was a video of a Vancouver Canucks fan one time really beating the crap out of an Anaheim Ducks fan one time. Yeah. And I was just like, this is Vancouver and Anaheim. They're not even rivals.
Right.
And this is happening. Now, don't get me wrong, this is Canada. So it's understandable that Canadians are going to beat you up if you're wearing an enemy jersey. But still, the point is, though, is that you're right about different fan bases. They all have their people that are going to get drunk. They're going to do something stupid.
100%.
I mean, my dad...
It's usually me.
Now, here's the funny part, though. Hey, Tom. Here's the funny part. I actually come from from a family rivalry. My dad was a Penguins fan. So you can automatically see that me and my dad did not get along very well, me being a Flyers fan, him being a Penguins fan. In that retrospect, my dad went to a game one time in the Spectrum with my uncle, and my uncle was a Flyers fan. Flyers fan wanted to beat the crap out of my dad because this was during the days of Mario Lemieux and just the Penguins crapping on the Flyers all day long. And they literally had some drunken Philadelphia person wanted to beat up my dad because he was wearing his Lemieux jersey. Wow. It was that bad. Wow. If my uncle wasn't there, who knows what would have happened? I might not exist right now.
I think
basically, if that was the case.
It's a risky move though. Taking anybody's opposing colors and going to the home den. I don't care what stadium you go to. You're gonna catch some flack no matter where you go. Some places,
I understand. I would still think Philadelphia. I mean, I've done a little bit of traveling. I still think the reputation has been, the throwing the snowballs at Santa Claus and the Geno's video. I mean, I think the reputation at Philadelphia is still pretty bad.
One Santa Claus in the whole world has to yell about it.
I know. It's like 60 years ago.
It's an example of a few rotten apples spoiling the bunch. I swear. It's
not. The funny part is Boston. Apparently, there was Boston Bruins fans booing a guy who was dressed up like Jesus. Now, I don't know if this was because that's technically sacrilegious against the Christian religion, and it's a predominantly Catholic area in Boston, or the fact that these are passionate Bruins fans and they really don't want to see a religious idol being brought into the situation right now. But either way, though, man, that's strange when you think about it. Boston fans does that, and then my friend pointed this out. Okay, Boston fans do that, but one Santa Claus throwing snowballs at it, Philadelphia Eagles fans are vilified for life.
Ed Rendell even had something to do with that, I believe.
I'll let you guys get back to your show here, and I just wanted to call and defend my name. And
well, you did solidly.
The rest of your show and see what happens the rest of the series here.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you calling in, Thomas. Quick question before you go. You still got that golf date with Yager this weekend?
Well, actually, I have one last question, though, before you say goodbye, Tom. Let me ask you a question. What are your picks for the Stanley Cup final?
I'm just disgusted. Actually, to be honest, I'm just disgusted with my Devils, and I've lost any interest. I couldn't even name half the teams that are in it right now. I'm just with what happened with the shootouts. I mean, it's just, and even my other friends as well were just completely disgusted with their own team. But so I really don't have I actually liked when I was watching over at Rob's house. I liked the Avalanche.
Okay,
it was actually kind of impressive.
That's not a bad pick.
I'm going to help you out on that.
Did I hear you just say you like the Flyers?
Yeah.
The hell no.
Yeah,
okay. I didn't know if that was a glitch. I could have swore I heard you say you like the Flyers go all the way.
I thought you were like, hey,
sorry
man,
about
I got
that.
the Flyers winning the Cup, man. This is good. I got my bracket challenge filled out, man.
Thomas, all right, guys. Take care.
All right, man.
You too, man.
Take care. Thanks for calling. So, big things happening here in the Hockey Happy Hour. Finally, we got a call-in.
Yes.
It took forever. Thank you, Tom, for being the first one defending his name after we ripped him, or at least I did, mostly.
So, in other words, we just got to rip our fans, and then they'll call in.
And then they'll call in. Okay, then here's the rip on the Flyers fans.
You got to give me a little backstory on this. Did I hear he was a converted fan?
He was a converted fan. Apparently, he was a Rangers fan before becoming a Devils fan. Now, this is strange when you think about the history of the Rangers and the Devils, because it's not a very nice history whatsoever between those two teams. Especially when you look back at that 94 playoff series when, I'm still thinking Devils fans are hearing Mateau in their sleep, just like I don't want to hear that from a Rangers fan at all.
Tommy's actually closer to your age, so he may not remember that too well.
Okay, then, yeah. So
I think it's an example of Papa Connolly there, bringing him to some Rangers games. Okay, I like the Rangers, and then he actually went to, I believe he said the Kings Devils Stanley Cup.
Devils,
Right.
yeah.
Really liked what they had going on. So I think he was under the umbrella term, I'm a Rangers fan, but really started becoming a strong, active hockey fan with the Devils there. It just, like I said, it's a fair weather scenario.
Yeah,
It is, especially up there in North Jersey. You've got 3 hockey teams, basically. Not like South Jersey. We're pretty much genetically predisposed to liking one team and one
Right.
team only. That's the
Right.
Philadelphia Flyers. But when you
Right.
get up to North, it's very different. You've got the Long Island fans of the Islanders, which I think are a myth, and we've got the Rangers fans from Manhattan, and then they migrated into New Jersey.
I'm trying to understand how the hell he got on the Cowboys though off the Giants. If
Well,
he's...
I mean, Rob's a Cowboys fan, so
Oh,
it's
okay.
kind of interesting. You know?
I didn't know that.
You can ask Rob.
Did you notice I got really quiet when he brought up the Cowboys?
And then also, let's also throwing out fans not liking other fans. I'm pretty sure he knows what it's like to have heat with New York because he's a Mets fan. So could you imagine going to Yankee Stadium in a Mets jersey?
So hold on, you're a Dallas Cowboys fan,
Mm-hmm.
you're a Mets fan, but you're a Flyers fan.
And then
Wow, that is a really interesting combination, Rob.
I'm also schizophrenic.
and then I do believe you have the Nets for your basketball team, right?
No, basketball. I would side with the Sixers. You know,
Oh, okay.
Just playing in the same building, Wells Fargo. I followed the Knicks. I followed Sacramento Kings, Lakers. I'm a basketball enthusiast, but I don't really have a team. I'm sort of a vagabond.
Okay,
Okay,
No,
that's okay. Yeah, respect there. You know, not rooting for any one particular team.
In all seriousness, what it boils down to, just to offer this one-time explanation, is that it was based on my childhood influences. My brother, who is a huge Dallas fan, influenced me, and I started following them. My dad, huge Mets fan, brought me to games, wound up going there. My stepdad, huge Flyers fan, wanted me to bring me there. So it left me all over the map. And what it created was an interesting dynamic with my friends. Certain seasons
Right.
we'll be arm in arm rooting for our team.
Right.
Other seasons would have that rivalry that, like Tom.
Yeah.
grinding the gears thing. I do
Yeah,
kind
by
of.
the time the playoffs are done, we're basically, you and me are on the same side, and Rob's our enemy because he's a Mets fan and we're Phillies fans.
And that's the funny thing because especially with the caller too, he should know that then because when the Mets fans come down to Citizens Bank Park, especially back in 06, 07, when the Mets were at the top of the NL East. It would get a little crazy down there, and it was more the Mets fans stirring that up sometimes than necessarily the Phillies fans. I think it went back and forth, but Mets fans definitely had something to do with that.
Do you remember when the Mets fans got married in Citizens Bank Park that one time? And then
Oh, good gracious God.
Yeah, these
No,
two Mets
I
fans,
do not
they
ever-
literally got married at Citizens Bank Park, and then the guy lifted up and showed a shoulder tattoo of the New York Mets logo, and everybody, I think at the time Phillies weren't doing all that well, but I think there was maybe a good 20,000, all 20,000 just started booing the crap
Oh, man,
out
I'm
of this
surprised
couple.
someone didn't throw a
And then
baseball
I
at
was
them.
at that game, too, and I started laughing. I was just like, oh my God, are you serious? I was laughing so hard because I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. Two Mets fans getting married at a Citizens Bank Park in a Phillies-Mets game. This is hilarious.
The rivalry must have got them off or something like that.
It must have,
I don't know what
So
that's
weird.
about.
It was so weird. I was just like, are you serious? That's like if a Braves fan did
Like,
that.
I think about it. I mean,
Which
marriage-
I have to give props to Rob. At least he's not a Braves fan.
Marriage brings
You know,
up
thank God.
peace,
Yeah.
unity, like parents, like a good, like a nice place, a church.
Apparently they prefer beer and other liquor to confetti and rice. You know, what I mean?
Or being screamed at during their wedding vows.
Apparently, they prefer getting half-eaten hot dogs and mustard packs and ketchup packs and broken beer bottles thrown at them for their wedding ceremony.
To each his own.
That's a wedding you won't forget, that's for sure. Yeah. But I mean. Nonetheless, we got off topic on hockey, but that was fun though for the
Hey,
time
you got to
period. It's always
divulge.
fun.
Yeah, you got to swing off topic.
Yeah, you got to swing off topic every once in a blue moon. I mean, it gets to the point where we're wondering, yeah, you can talk about hockey all you want, but how much fun is it to talk about the other sports too and how they all intertwine?
Hey, we're all sports fans
Yeah, we're
here.
all
You know what
sports
I mean?
fans
It
here,
bleeds
yeah.
through one way or another.
Yeah, so we get down now to the nitty-gritty. Before we head to break, we'll talk about another series right here. And let's talk about the Penguins and the Blue Jackets. Let's get a little in-depth right here because it's been a strange series. And we want to talk about how the Flyers and Rangers have been odd. Not really. The Rangers beating the Flyers 2-1, that's kind of an indictment of the season. But when it comes down to the Penguins and the Blue Jackets, we never thought in a million years it would be 2-2 at this point. So I ask you guys, what is going on, man? Do you see the Penguins doing this to themselves, or is Columbus just that good of a team?
I mean, it's a good matchup. I mean, I think when we talked about this a couple weeks ago before the playoffs start, we knew this was going to be a kind of one of those really interesting matchups. You have a young up and coming team in Columbus. And if you look at it, I mean, this 4-3, 3-4, 4-3, 3-4 has happened throughout the whole entire series here. So it's been tough contested games, and this is probably going to be, in my opinion, probably the best round one when it comes down to. I think this is definitely going 7 all the way.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
no doubt. And what you've seen in this series is that if you score the first goal or you jump out to a 2-goal lead, you're losing the game, which makes no sense whatsoever. Now, what other series did we have to say that about that in hockey's past?
That sounds very familiar to a Flyers series.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, getting down behind 2 goals and then coming back.
Flyers against Pittsburgh. And the whole time I was watching that series in the years past, I thought, well, maybe it's just, these teams just hate each other that bad that they let go of their discipline, and this is what happens. Now you're seeing it with the Penguins against another team that's sort of buying off a Flyers formula, getting underneath their skin, throwing them off their game. And the Penguins are reacting like this, and you're seeing poor defense. You're seeing, 2-goal leads not being protected. The Penguins have a problem. They're not a playoff team, much like the Capitals are not a playoff team. And they have a world of talent with Crosby and Malkin and Fleury. But when it comes to the playoffs, man, I don't know. I don't know about this team.
It seems like ever since they won that cup, they've lost their hunger. They've lost their desire. They've lost their passion for the cup. Now, albeit they're down Jordan Staal now, but still, the point is you still have mostly the same kind of core players here. And yet, you guys can't seem to get it going. Every time you guys get something, you run into a brick wall because you let frustration get a hold of you. I mean, Pittsburgh really had nobody bothering them last year. Nobody. The Flyers weren't there. The Rangers weren't there. There was nobody rival-wise that could really bother them. But then when they faced Boston, they got thrown completely off their game, thrown for a complete loop, and Boston absolutely crushed them in that series because of it. So you think to yourself, is Pittsburgh doing this to themselves, or is it just they're a victim of their surroundings that they think they're better than everybody else?
Well, I think the recipe's been put out there how to beat them, and I think the league has kind of picked up on that. I think it started with the Flyers. Okay, I think the Bruins picked up on that, and I think it's easy to see a couple of those series when the Flyers beat them. You watch the tapes on there. If any coach is going to sit there and watch the tape, you can kind of see Columbus doing that, getting under his skin. Making stupid plays, undisciplined plays, which hurts them eventually. They get behind us, goal goes in, they get frustrated, and that's definitely a detriment of that team that I really think you've seen kind of rear its head the last couple of years now. There's no ifs, ands, or buts, and you make a good point about that. Since the Cup, you've seen it become more prevalent now.
Yeah, because you do see a lot of that happening in history of the Stanley Cup, especially in hockey, because it's hard to repeat in hockey. The last team to do it were the Red Wings, and that was just because that was the same team, the same desire, the same team that beat the Flyers, went up against the Capitals, and absolutely crushed the Capitals. And that was the last time you really saw the exact same team do the exact same thing that they set out to do the year before. And it's been a long time since we've seen that, and all the teams kind of lose their edge. They lose their passion. They lose their fire. And it's just like, okay, we won the cup. It's ours. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be ours. We're never going to lose it. The only team that I have to say, and I think because they lost it, was Chicago, that really had that fire driven right back into them to get it back. And I give Chicago their props. I hate the Blackhawks beyond all belief, and that is just because of 2010. I will admit that gladly. But in all honesty,
nothing wrong with that.
No, nothing wrong with that at all. If you don't hate the team that beat you in the Stanley Cup Finals, what good of a fan are you?
Yeah, seriously.
But it was only the finals. Yeah. But The Blackhawks winning that cup in 2010 and then getting beat in the first round by the Canucks of all teams, and then the next year coming back and having that fire and that desire to try and get it back and really want that cup back, and they just worked hard at it, and eventually they beat Boston to get it. It took them 2 years, but they did it. So I say the only team that's really had that passion and fire has been the Blackhawks and maybe the Bruins. That's it,
Before I came down here, as you can see, I got my Scotty Hartnell signed T-shirt on. I pulled it out of my closet, and what you're talking about, the Blackhawks, underneath of it was my Michael Layton T-shirt. I'm like, I completely forgot I had this. I almost felt like burning it before I came up here, just bringing up a nightmare from the past of that. I know. I saw it. And it really, I was like, oh my God. It was just kind of funny coming down here to do this show. You know what I mean?
God.
And now you bringing that up, I had to bring my Michael Layton T-shirt moment this morning.
But you know what? Maybe it might be a sign of good luck, and I say this because my dad and my uncle had the same philosophy as they would wear each other's jerseys. My uncle would wear my dad's Lemieux jersey, and my dad would wear my uncle's Kerr jersey, and it would work. Their particular teams would win because Pittsburgh was always facing the Capitals back then, and Pittsburgh would beat the Capitals. Flyers were always facing New York, and they would beat New York. So it was kind of like, hey, you know what? Maybe that might work. Some, reverse luck.
I was listening to they had Boomer Esiason on the other day, and he's a big Rangers fan, and his whole little point was he's actually taking, well, he said Scotty Hartnell's jersey at first. He takes the opposing team's player he thinks he's going to flourish, takes the jersey and puts it in the freezer. So supposedly he took Giroux's and Hartnell's jersey and got them in 2 freezers in his house. So it's working, which is almost the sick thing about it, to be honest.
It's just like, damn it, the Rangers freaking, their superstitions are working and ours aren't. What the hell's going on here?
No, I'm after the show. I'm going out and buying a Lundqvist and buying a Hagman. I'm putting it right in the freezer right now.
Get a Stahl one too, because that might help. And get a Carcillo one while you're at it.
You could not find a Dan Carcillo jersey.
Yeah, good point. You would have to find a custom jersey, beat it off of a Rangers fan, and put it in your jersey.
I know that.
And put it in your freezer.
It's time to exercise the demons.
Yes, it is. Have a whole ceremony before we freeze it too. It's like Star Wars in the carbon freezing chamber. We're just all celebrating around it, and it's all a feeling. We got somebody has to be dressed up like Darth Vader too, just for this particular occasion as well.
Definitely.
But it's been crazy, this whole series between Columbus and Pittsburgh, and it's just anything's possible now. Pittsburgh could very well have home ice taken away from them if Columbus gets this Game 5 win coming up. I say Columbus beats them if they get home ice taken away from Pittsburgh, because if Pittsburgh loses it, Pittsburgh's in trouble.
Columbus, and I think, Rob brought this up earlier, Bobrovsky hasn't played out of his mind yet either. You know what I mean? He really hasn't had that game to where, Bobrovsky, won that game for them yet in this series. So that's the scary point. That's where, piggybacking on what you just said, there's a high possibility they do win. You know what I mean? Because I think, a 7-game series, he's going to have one of these games. I don't want to say the cliche, but he's going to stay. He's going to have one of those games where he's going to stand on his head. Hopefully, and that if that's in the right game and they can steal home ice, it could turn really quickly.
It's the perfect example of a former Penguin, Tom Barrasso, when he would have really bad games, and then you'd think, uh-oh, Penguins are in trouble, and I know this because my dad used to watch all the games, and Tom Barrasso would just have bad game after bad game, and we're thinking, ooh, the Caps are actually going to do it this year. They're going to get rid of the Penguins finally. And then Tom Barrasso would snap. He'd play phenomenal, shut out the Caps, and the Penguins would win. You're like, how does a man do that? He just snaps into place. And then the same thing happened with the Flyers, where we would see Boucher, where he'd have bad game after bad game, and then he'd stand on his head.
Yeah, I know. Have like back-to-back shutouts.
Yeah, it was weird. It was just like, especially during that series against the Devils in 2010, he was stupendous in that series, stopping everything down the pike. And that was when the Penguins had Kovalchuk, Parise, Zajac, Eliash. They had all those great players. and yet he stopped them all.
Right.
And the Flyers basically piggybacked off of Boucher and won that series.
That's what kept him in the league for, almost 20 years. The reason he was never a starter was that inconsistency towards the back end of his career. He could have those great games, but then all of a sudden the guy's letting 5 goals in the next night. So you had the great games and then you had the bad games, but it's hard to kind of get that consistency out of him.
Yeah, I mean, we can't all be Patrick Waugh. So,
Sure we can.
Yeah, who says you can't? You know what? We're going to break all of Waugh's records before the season's up. I call it now. Mason will break his records. I pray he does. Yes, please, hockey gods, make Mason break Waugh's records.
Right. I mean, he's pretty much had his best. I mean, you're talking about Mason. He's pretty much had his best year as a goalie. So, him coming back in the series, hopefully with the Flyers, will jumpstart them. We all know we need it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's good to see that we got what we were hoping that the Flyers would get, and that's Steve Mason of his rookie year. And he's even.
He matched the games played. I think 61 games played. I think it was almost on the dot record wise. So in goals per game average. So
he did phenomenal.
Yeah, there's no ifs ands.
No, you were right though. This was his best season because I believe he eclipsed that win record by 2 or 3. Like I think he had.
It was really, really, really close.
And then he had the ability to snag games too, because he snagged a game in Nashville that they shouldn't have won because it went to a shootout, and he single-handedly won the game for Philadelphia.
Right.
And there were other times where he would just snag a team a win.
Right.
And that's just like, we need goalies like that. We didn't have it with Brizgalov. We didn't have it with Bobrovsky because he was too young. We didn't have it with Emery because Emery's inconsistent. There's just so many reasons why the Flyers' goaltending was not able to do that. But now with Mason, we finally might just have that finally. It took so long for it to come back.
I like how Berube got him in the last game. I mean, it was only 3 shots, but, that was 7.5 minutes on the ice that just to get him out there, the guy's he's 24. He's 0-4 in the playoffs as it is already, so he doesn't have a lot of, great positive vibes on that front.
That series isn't particularly his fault because if you go back to that series, it was Columbus versus Detroit, and there was just nothing you could do about it.
I don't disagree with you whatsoever, but wins are wins and losses are losses,
and stats are stats,
and it's a playoff loss for them. So and that sits in your head. So you're hoping he came out there, didn't let a goal in, which I think was crucial. Stood tall the last 7 minutes, and hopefully he can really translate that into building confidence and getting him out here for a big game tonight because we need it.
Yeah, and it's a good thing now because he's had a full season to face the Rangers. It would have been different if it was last year and we were facing the Rangers last year in the playoffs. It would have been like, well, Mason has never faced the Rangers a full season. He has no idea what he's in for. He does now know what he's in for, at least. So it's always a good thing that he kind of knows what he's in for when he's facing these teams, particularly, especially when he's going up against the Penguins or if he's going up against the Rangers or the Devils. He knows what's coming, you know?
Right.
So that's always a good thing. That season of experience as a Flyer under your belt.
I agree.
It's always in a roller coaster.
Out of the series at hand between Fleury and Bobrovsky, who's going to win the series for their respective team?
I think it's going to be Bobrovsky. I think Fleury, like you said, he's not comfortable. And Fleury never finds that comfort zone until it's too late, until he's gone down 3 goals, and then he starts to stand on his head. By that point, Pittsburgh might very well be done. Right. Their goose might be cooked by that point.
And it's not the first time he's struggled in the playoffs before either. I don't think. And you see, even when Bobrovsky's struggling a little bit, he's still. He still has decent games. You know what I mean? So I'm hopping on Matt's back. I definitely like Bobrovsky shining through the rest of the series. I actually like them coming back and winning this series altogether, in my opinion.
And that is. And my pick is, I think that we do see Columbus winning this. I say if they win Game 5, they win it in 6. And they have just as much of a chance of winning in 7 against Pittsburgh. That's not even a safe bet.
Yeah. I like that. You make a really good point right there. That's because if they can hop up on them that game, then just really steamroll back on them.
And I'm going to go on the mic now, and I'm going to say if Columbus beats Pittsburgh, That's the biggest motivation Columbus could ever have. No matter who wins this Flyers-Rangers series, Columbus can beat both teams.
Yeah. I was going to say that would be a huge series win for them. Huge for this team.
I would even say Columbus goes to the Eastern Conference Final
if they win this series.
Yeah, if they win this series,
I see where you're going with
the
that
Bruins
too.
or the Canadians, whichever one would come out of that. I still think it's going to be Bruins and Canadians. So whoever wins that series will probably be facing Columbus at this point.
Think about that. If they run through them and the Bruins, this team's going to be scary next year.
Oh man, if they make a tough run at the Bruins,
I was going to say,
cow,
if they
man!
Really, I mean, watch out because it's they got a lot of talent on that team.
And this is a weak Eastern Conference. This is a weak Eastern Conference. They could be a nightmare to deal with real fast. So we've talked a good hour. It's time to take a break, rest up our vocal cords because we still got another one to do. We still got to sprint. One more run. I know you're tired, but go get a little bit.
Not at all. I'm ready for another hour.
Are you ready? All right, then. I like that. Pat.
Tired? What are you talking about, man?
We got a lot of series to go through.
We got a lot more to talk about. We still got plenty more coming up. We might dabble a little bit into the history books if we got the time. And, we are the Hockey Happy Hour. This is Matt, Rob, Henry. We're all here, ready for you, waiting for you. We got another hour to play. We got period number 2 coming up, so keep those skates sharpened. Keep yourself fresh and warm. And we're going to take a little break. Here's a little ditty by The Offspring called Bad Habit.
Hey man, you know I'm really okay. The gun in my hand will tell you the same. But when I'm in my car, don't give me no crap, 'cause the slide is banging, I just might snap it. Oh! When I go driving, I stay in my lane. We're getting cut off, it makes me insane. Open the glove box, reach inside, gonna wreck this fucking ride, 'cause I got a bad habit. I'm blowing away. Got a bad habit. It ain't going away. Yeah, yeah, They say the road's a dangerous place. If you flip me up, I'll get in your face. You drive on my ass, your foot's on the gas, and your next breath is your last, 'cause I got a bad habit. I'm blowing away. Got a bad habit. It ain't going away. Travelers are rude, such attitudes, but when I show my peace, complaints see some things odd. I feel like I'm God, you stupid, dumb shit, goddamn mother!